Namaste. Can't hear you.
Let me see.
Yes, I can hear you,
You
Jeff.
can hear me? Good.
Yes, I do. I'll just change your. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jeff. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
you're very welcome. I'm very happy to
Uh,
be here.
Thank you so much. And I namaste from India. Namaste from everyone from India.
Thank you.
Um, um, I'm really speechless right now. So I was all prepared and everything, but I'm so speechless right now. Um, so let me just kind of tell us about who we are and what we represent.
Good.
And yes, my name is Parinitha, and you can call me Pari. And I represent the Pyramid Spiritual Societies movement, which was founded by Subhash Patri ji, who's my father.
Hmm.
And
And what
we
is
have
it
been
called again?
Pyramid Spiritual Societies movement.
Pyramid Spiritualist Society Movement.
Yes,
Okay.
which is called as PSSM. We have been like my father has been traveling extensively since the last 30 years, spreading meditation and plant-based food and pyramid energy.
Mm.
That is what we are, and uh, you're the second person that we are interviewing. We are interviewing all the grandmasters of the entire world to be introduced to everyone, to the world. And take advantage of your wisdom and experience and apply it in their own life. So that is the whole intention of doing these interviews.
Well,
So
thank you so much. I'm very honored to be talking to you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Um, Getting ahead with our interview, we would love to know uh, who is Jeff Carreira? Like,
It's a
please
good
let us
question.
know about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a little bit of my background.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was born in America, uh, and my family was Portuguese. So my grandparents were born in Portugal, and
Okay.
and they immigrated to America. So my parents were born in America. I was born in America. So I was second generation American,
Right.
and I had spiritual interest from a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
and but was living a very normal American life, and went to school, went to college, got a job, got
Okay.
married. I literally lived in a white house with a white picket fence, which is
Uh-huh.
the American ideal for family living. But when I was always a seeker. When I was 29, I got involved with a spiritual community,
Mm-hmm.
and I left my life completely.
Okay.
So I left, excuse me, I left my career at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I left the marriage that I had been in, and I left her the house and all of the belongings, and I just
Mm-hmm.
joined a spiritual community where I lived for the next 20 years. Uh,
Okay.
and there I had the opportunity to do any amount, as much practice as I could possibly want. We did a lot of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
uh, among all kinds of other practices. And there came a point, when I started to share what I had learned, happened after a 2-month-long retreat I did,
Mm-hmm.
and a number of things happened during that retreat. It was a long time. It was a good length of time to be on retreat, and it was silent. We were doing practice from 4 a.m. until evening, and I was having a lot of profound experiences. At one point, I was sitting in meditation, and I felt my body expanding. And so it expanded up through the roof of the meditation hall, and then it kept going, and then I could see the whole town below me, and then it was going, and then I could see the earth, the round globe, and then it kept going. And then pretty soon I couldn't tell which one was the earth anymore, because it was just the whole cosmos had become my body. And when I was resting in that place, there was this intense sense of well-being and love and perfection, sort of the ultimate relief. And I remembered that I used to do this when I was a little boy. That I remember that when I was, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years old, I would lock myself into the bathroom, and there was a mirror on the wall, and I used to stare into my own eyes. And if I kept staring into my own eyes, I would blow up until I was the size of the cosmos. And then I would let
Wow.
myself come back down, and then I would, go off. So, and then I remembered the day, I very specifically remember the day that I went in the bathroom and I couldn't do it anymore. That I was looking in my eyes and I couldn't do it, and I couldn't do it, and I couldn't do it. And evidently, I forgot that I ever could. But I'm sure that the reason, because I was always unsettled in life. Even while I was pursuing a normal life, I was always unsettled. It never really made sense to me. I was always a seeker. I was doing meditation. I was reading spiritual books. And I'm sure it was all because I had had such powerful experiences as a child. Even though I'd forgotten them, there was some way in which they wouldn't allow me to be comfortable in the world. And so that retreat was a miracle. It kept going from there, and there were more and more experiences. And after that, I started teaching inside the community that I was a part of until about 2005. And then I started teaching, virtually online, but also traveling around the world until that community disbanded around 2012. And then I've since been teaching on my own, and have been writing books and leading retreats in different places and teaching classes online. And I just never cease to be amazed by the miracle of life and spirit and the higher powers that exist in the world. So that's
That,
me in a nutshell.
that's so beautiful, Jeff. The reason why I wanted to interact with you is you're such a great master. You have acquired so much of wisdom, and you have written so many books that we have all read, and we have all been inspired by reading those books. And to those who want to know about Jeff Carreira, he is a mystical philosopher. He's a spiritual guide. He's a teacher. He's a seeker. He's a student. He's a lecturer and a writer. He has written so many books, and many of them, the most important book that I have read and I've been inspired is called the Practice of No Problem. That's such an amazing book, and I really want to know, where did that book come from?
Well, that was, and I will send you a copy. I've written a more recent book, which is kind of maybe you could say almost an update of the Practice of No Problem, called The Art of Conscious Contentment.
Oh,
But it's it's a little bit more recent, so I'll make sure I send that to you.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. And where did that book come from? Well, the meditation practice that I was doing for years, essentially the instruction was, let everything be as it is, right? So it was just a very open awareness type of practice. And there's many different instructions that you can use that will help you with that. So let everything be as it is an instruction that you can use, but also don't make a problem out of anything. Just sit and don't make a problem is essentially the same thing as let everything be as it is. But
Yeah.
for some reason, during my own path, when I would meditate with the instruction, don't make a problem out of anything that happened, I found that easier than let everything be as it is, because what it allows you to do is sit and become aware of the mind's habit of constantly seeing everything as a problem, right?
Right.
Constantly taking the position that something's wrong and something needs to be fixed and I need to do something. And you can,
Mm.
and when you sit and just with the intention to not make a problem out of anything, you see the habit of seeing everything as a problem and getting involved with everything to fix it is so strong. And then, of course, the practice gets most profound when you realize that you have all of this momentum of making problems and fixing problems, and then you
Yes.
see that and it annoys you,
It does. It does.
right? But then if you
Yes.
try to stop that, you're making that a problem. So that in the end, the only way to do the practice is you have to let those habits, right? They're just karmic habits, and I believe that the way it will work is if you just let them go. Eventually, they'll run out of energy, and you don't know how long. Might be this lifetime or some other. But if
Mm-hmm.
you don't engage with them and you don't add energy to them, then that whole momentum of making everything a problem will eventually run out of steam. And when it does, you'll realize that none of it was ever a problem in the first place. Right?
That is
That's
so simple.
yes, exactly. It's so simple and so profound, which is why I love those instructions.
That is so beautiful. And this no problem. Uh, my father in the last year, 2019 Buddha Purnima, which is the Vesak celebrations, this has become the mantra of the entire society. Uh,
Oh, amazing.
Entire society. There were lakhs of people who were saying, you know what, no problem, no problem, no problem. Your book has inspired so many of us, and we have actually written to you for the translation rights of No Problem, the Practice of No Problem book, and you have given us a permission, and this is the book that we have printed in Telugu language.
Oh, how lovely.
Yes.
That's
And this
very
is,
nice.
yes, you were so kind to give us the permission to get it translated into Telugu language, and this is your work.
Ah, thank you. Well, that's beautiful to see.
Yes, yes. So that is how we are inspired about your books, and you have written so many books that we have all read as well. So, what is you just mentioned about the 60 days meditation, and I would love to know what exactly happened within you in those 60 days.
Okay, so I had many spiritual experiences before that,
Yeah,
but this
yeah,
was a very intensive opportunity to do practice. So I would say what was so powerful about these 20 days, these 60 days, was I really sustained an unbroken concentration in practice through those 60. I was very motivated, and I really was uh, intensely driven to not waste a second of the time that I had. And so many things happened. I did write a small book about that called The Miracle of Meditation, which I did send you, which
yes,
has some journal excerpts. But for instance, the two experiences that stand out among the many that happened during those 2 months, one was one night when I woke up and I had this tremendous pain at the base of my spine. And it felt like I'd hurt something, like I'd broken my tailbone or something. I remember thinking, could you break your tailbone just from sitting on a cushion all day? It didn't seem very likely, but I thought maybe I sat on it wrong. But it felt like I'd fallen down, but I couldn't remember falling down. So I got up and I was walking around the room and kind of rubbing my back to make the pain go away, but it wouldn't go away. And so eventually I just sat down on the bed. And as soon as I sat and relaxed, this a roaring rush of white light shot from the bottom of my spine through the top of my head. and it roared. It was as it went through. It didn't last long, probably 30 seconds, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when it was done, I said, "Oh my God, I think that was Kundalini." Because now that wasn't a huge part of our practice at the time, but it was so undeniably powerful, whatever it was, you know. The energetically, I remember it was so bright. The light as it was passing through me was so bright, it was hurting my eyes. And I thought the light was in the room, so I closed my eyes, but the light was inside, so it didn't help. And so that happened. And
Wow.
then there was another evening, a week or so later, where I was very tired. And I was trying to force myself to stay awake. I'm sure if you meditate, you know, like when you're tired, how horrible it's, like a torture to try and stay awake. And so I was torturing myself trying to stay awake, and my eyes were watering, and I had a headache, and it was awful. And suddenly a thought went through my head that said, "You're not really tired." And I realized I'm not tired. I'm I'm perfectly awake. I just happen to be experiencing the inside of a tired body. But I'm just as aware and awake of the inside of this body as I would be to anything else. And suddenly I didn't feel tired at all anymore, even though my eyes were still watering and burning and my head was still headachy. And, you know, I still had that feeling, the bodily feeling of tired, but I was perfectly awake. And now I was just amazed. I was sitting going, "This is amazing.
That's
I'm in a,
beautiful.
I'm in a tired body. You know, this is beautiful." Yeah, exactly. This is so amazing. And then that night I went to sleep. And as I was laying in the bed, I felt this tingling in my toes. And then my whole body got numb. And I realized I'd fallen asleep, but I hadn't lost consciousness.
Wow.
And then all through the night, dreams would appear, and I'd realize, "Oh my God, I'm dreaming." But I hadn't ever lost consciousness. And then the dream would go away, and then there'd be nothing, no sensation of body, no sensation of anything, but I'd still be there. And then another dream, and then another nothing. And then eventually the alarm clock went off, and I felt my body wake up. But I'd been conscious through the whole night. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that happened 3 nights in a row. And what I realized after that experience was that consciousness that was aware throughout, you know, the waking state, the dreaming state, and the deep sleep state, right? What they call Turiya in the Eastern tradition, that is what I am. And that when this body falls away and dies, that will still remain. And that
Right.
was there before this body came into existence. And that's who I was before this life. And I had any fear of death just melted away because I was sure that there was no such thing as death.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and so, you know, those are two of the most profound things that happened during that retreat.
Yes. And that is such a beautiful experience that, I would, I would have loved to hear from you. And uh, that retreat must have really changed you. I mean, those 60 days of meditation must have really changed you from within. And um when I think about meditation, what do you mean by meditation? What is meditation for you?
Okay, so there's probably different answers to that question, right? Ultimately, and this is what I tell people, you know, I say, ultimately, meditation is being. So you were meditating before you were born. You're meditating every minute of this life, and you'll be meditating when it's over, because that consciousness that is aware through all states is the meditation.
Hmm.
Uh, that being said, the practice of meditation, right, which is what we do um, to support us to realize who we are, the practice of meditation then is just generally seated practice, and at least the way I teach it, it probably doesn't have to be, that allows you to just be free. So meditation is a practice of just being free from needing anything to be different than the way it is, right? So there's no grasping. It's a direct practice of spiritual freedom. It's the practice of letting go of control. So when you sit in meditation, you just give up control. You just because everything you're seeing in meditation is just karmic unfolding. So you're just letting the karma unfold. You're letting everything happen, one thing after another, and you're just not getting involved in any of it. And as you'll see in the book that I'll send you, you are learning how to be consciously content with everything, which doesn't mean feeling happy, because you can be consciously content even if you feel miserable. As long as you're content with feeling miserable, you're fine.
That is the kind of puzzle that everybody wants to solve. Like, how do I feel content in this chaotic world? Like, how will that contentment come to me?
So here's the thing. You can't necessarily, you have to make a distinction. You can't necessarily feel content all the time. That's not possible. Feelings come and go. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're in a world like this, it doesn't promote a whole lot of contentment often. So you have to make a distinction between feeling content and being content. You can always be content with everything, but that doesn't, even when you're feeling discontent, even when you're feeling frustrated or upset or afraid, as long as you are okay, because ultimately what that means is you accept that you're human. You accept that the human condition includes wonderful, happy, joyous, celebratory experiences and horrible, terrifying, painful experiences. And you just say, you know what? I'm going to be happy with being human. And it includes everything. I'm not going to only want the good parts of being human. I'm going to want to be fully human. Everything from the best to the worst, I embrace it all. And I'm going to stop trying to be half a human, just the good half. I'm going to allow myself to be a full human. And when you let go in that way, when you open up to embrace the full spectrum of what it means to be human, what you immediately realize is that being human is a miracle. It's being human is a miracle, even when you're feeling bad. You start to think, well, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. How did I get here? This is amazing. And that's when you start to see, like, the part of you that sort of complains about not feeling good. You start to think, what was I complaining about? I'm alive. I should be on my knees thanking, whoever allowed me to take birth, rather than complaining about the parts I don't like.
Exactly.
So yeah, in order to have that kind of radical acceptance, you need to be holding a very big view on life, where you realize that this is really a miracle.
I guess that's what you have written in your book, Embracing Who We Are.
Yes, that's right.
So
that's right.
Embracing who we are, as in totally accepting ourselves with all, whatever we are, whether it be happiness or pain or extremes or whatever it is, we need to embrace ourselves as we are, completely, fully.
Yes.
I think that's what you mean by saying.
And that includes not just our physical, personal self, but it includes who we are as that consciousness that exists beyond all form. We have to embrace the whole totality of who we are, from the most sublime spiritual aspects of our nature to the most earthly, sometimes painful aspects of our nature, and everything in between.
So we need to accept our physical side, emotional, mental, on the spiritual, and on all the levels. We need to embrace ourselves as we are.
Yes, exactly. Because what
So,
else can you do? I mean, I mean, you can either, so there's really, ultimately, there's two choices. Either you're going to embrace all that you are and accept it, or you're going to fight who you are. And the fighting who you are is painful and horrible at a spiritual level. And it's unfortunately what many people do their whole life, is they are fighting with who they are, trying to make
yes.
themselves who they think they want to be. And then, they die at some point. And then, if the Eastern traditions are right, you get to come back and try again.
Right, right. Um, can you tell us more about Kundalini? What is Kundalini for you? What
Well,
is Kundalini?
it's a very interesting question. I'm not an expert in Kundalini, so I'm just going to say that. I have a good friend, an American teacher named Dorothy Walters, who's much more an expert on Kundalini than I am. But I don't take these things literally. So traditionally, Kundalini is the energy of awakening that's coiled at the base of the spine, and when we are ripe for its emergence, it will move through us, and it cleans up all the chakras as it goes through the spine and creates a clear channel to the divine. That's the theory. So to me, what I experienced was a kind of energetic white light, as I described, it was so powerful and so tangibly real to me that there's no way I could deny it as a something, And
Yeah.
in talking with my friend Dorothy, I began to see that even though I wasn't paying much attention to Kundalini because that wasn't part of our path, I was having, probably before that, but certainly after, right up to the present day, experiences that you could call Kundalini that fit. Now, they weren't the full-blown explosion that I experienced that day, but I experience now, for instance, I'm in the process of writing a new book. And my writing process is essentially, I write in spurts when I get overwhelmed by energy, right? So there's an energy of realization that starts to happen.
Yes.
and it's so intense that I just feel compelled to sit and type. And then I'll write out, who knows, could be 3 pages, 10 pages, 15, until it's done. Sometimes the energy is so intense. It's energy of excitement. It's like excited insight and revelation, one thing after another pouring through. Sometimes it's so intense I'm almost vibrating, and then I can't quite make my fingers, they keep hitting the wrong keys. So then I have to take a walk to let some of the energy dissipate so I'm calm enough to come back. But I now see that you could say that that's Kundalini.
Right.
It fits the description. This is the interesting thing. I always tell people, I think we have to be careful ascribing too much reality to the things that we see, because the experiences themselves are undeniably real, right? The stories we tell about what they are, you have to be a little careful, because you don't want to lock yourself into a story about reality.
Absolutely.
So somewhere you have to be in this middle ground where you are undeniably standing firm in the reality of what you've experienced and holding your understanding about what it means loosely, so that
Right.
as you have more experience, your understanding can also grow.
Absolutely. And that's wonderful understanding from your perspective. And I have read from your website that the great master Ramana Maharshi ji had
Yes.
a great influence on you. And I would love to hear a few words from you regarding him.
Well, Ramana was one of the greatest Indian saints of the 20th century, maybe the greatest saint of the 20th century. Of course, I never, he was no longer in his body when I was born. But the tradition I worked in was a lineage to Ramana. So I was well steeped in a lot of Ramana's teaching. You know, his main practice was the self-inquiry practice, you know, which essentially was you were always looking, no matter what your experience was, you were always looking at the source. You know, who's having this experience? You know, who am I was the question he would have you ask. Who am I? So no matter what experience you're having, and he was always pointing you back to the awareness of awareness, you know, to the and that awareness, that the awareness of where the awareness, that is what we are. Before we're a body, before we're a person, before we're in this life, we are just awareness. That's, I believe, what I was experiencing when I couldn't lose consciousness throughout the night, that I was experiencing just the awareness that is. And that's all I am. But that's not who Jeff is. That's who we are. That's what is.
Yes.
You know, so the famous I am that, you know, that is what is, and I am that, because there isn't anything else.
Right.
And the thing I love about, at least what I've read from Ramana, is this, you know, I think this very simple description, the very traditional, which I mentioned earlier. We all experience three states of consciousness: the waking state, which is presumably the one we're in now, unless this is a dream, but assuming it's not a dream, we're in the waking state.
Right.
And then at night we experience the dream state, and we also experience periods in which there's no awareness of what is. So the deep sleep. So we all have those three states. And
Yes.
and Ramana is always pointing to that awareness, that's the awareness that's aware through each of those states.
Right.
And you know, which is called the fourth, or Turiya. And basically all we can do is relax and allow ourselves to be aware of the awareness that is. And then whatever is going to be our spiritual destiny will unfold, you know, once we stop being so engaged with everything. So one thing I'd like to say about that's occurred to me from reading Ramana is there's a passage in one of the English editions of Ramana's teachings in which a disciple asks him about, says, well, sometimes when I'm asleep, or sometimes when I'm doing my practice, I get in this sleep but not sleep state. I start to get kind of, he says, I start to get kind of sleepy, but I'm not really asleep. And when that happens, I wake myself up so I can continue my practice. And Ramana says something like, that is your natural state. If you experience your natural state, and then thinking it's not your practice will end. Where if you realize that that's your natural state, you'll realize all you need to do is be there. And I think what he's pointing to there, in which I tell people, is that if we get too attached to some idea of being awake, like awake meaning upright awake, you can end up you can end up conditioning yourself to stay firm in the waking state alone, right? And you'll miss this subtlety of Turiya, because the waking state, even if it's extended through your whole day and you remain completely awake to everything that happens, is not the same as the awareness that's always aware, right? Because the awareness that's always aware is not a state that you need to maintain. It actually already is the case. It is what's aware right now as I look at you and you look at me. You don't need to do anything to make that what it is, and you don't need to do anything to sustain that, because it always is. It's eternal and everlasting. So I always, when I teach meditation, I like to give people permission to not be so rigid about staying awake. Now, of course, if you just fall asleep, that's not meditation either. But if you
Yes.
hold yourself too rigidly, tensely alert, that's not quite it either. So I often will say, we want to be still in meditation, but not still like a brick, because a brick is a stiff, rigid thing. We want to be
Absolutely.
still like the surface of a pond when there's no wind, right? It's potentially fluid.
Hmm.
It's not stiff, but it's perfectly at rest. So
Like
there's
no ripples going
no
around.
ripples. Exactly. And there's a big difference between holding yourself rigidly still and coming to complete rest. And at least in America, I find it takes a long time for people to learn that difference and to learn how to rest.
Yes, I do understand. Yes.
Mhm.
Wow, that thought itself is so freeing. Like this wisdom is so freeing the mind. It really broadens the perspective and the openness of the mind and the heart. So this is so enlightening. This is so freeing.
Yes.
The whatever you're saying, it's so freeing.
Hmm.
So from the limitations, from the rigidities of the mind. So
Yes. Well,
yeah.
you can see how meditation or any spiritual practice. So one of the things that I like to speak about is that we are conditioned to see ourselves as individual achievers. That's what we do.
Hmm.
We achieve stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm sure that's true in India as it is in America. That's
Hmm.
modern life. And so when we start to do our spiritual practice, it naturally we relate to it as something that we're supposed to achieve. It
Right.
right? It becomes some kind of effortful work that leads to achievement. And look, there's a place for that in spiritual practice. There's a need to develop discipline and to strengthen the mind and to focus the mind. So that all has to happen. But ultimately, spiritual practice is not about achieving, it's about surrender, right? So in the end, or the beginning, if you're lucky, uh, the only practice there is the practice of surrender, right? So you said earlier, what is meditation? The best definition I know of meditation is the one I heard from Rumi, who said, "Close your eyes and surrender." It's the simplest, perfect definition of what real meditation is you just surrender to the way things are. It's the same as
Mhm.
accepting the way things are, and you just
Yes.
let go and give up. Give up the struggle, give up needing to be anywhere other than where you are. And when you don't need to be anywhere other than here, then it's easy
Mhm.
to rest. But as long as there's any idea that there's something that needs to change, something that needs to be better, somewhere else to be, and even the smallest, we won't be able to fully rest because it'll feel like, oh, we're not there yet. We can't be comfortable here because here isn't good enough. And so when you finally let go and you realize not only is here good enough, here is amazing, it's miraculous, and here is the only place there is anyway, then it's almost like you can't help but rest then.
Yeah. That's so beautiful, Jeff. Thank you so much for sharing this. And speaking about meditation, my father he practices and he teaches Anapanasati meditation.
Okay.
Anapanasati means it's observing your own breath.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The method he teaches everybody is to clasp their hands, just fold your legs or cross your legs, and just start observing your breath. And any thoughts that come, just cut them off and just concentrate on your breathing.
Yes.
And then you go into that deep meditation. That's a meditation that he teaches. And do you have any views on Anapanasati meditation?
I mean, I don't, the word I'm just learning from you, so I don't have a lot of views, but it's very similar to the mindfulness meditations that are, at least some of
Yeah.
them, that are very popular in America now.
Mhm.
And this is my view on that. It's not that I did do mindfulness practice before I joined the community. I was doing Buddhist practice of mindfulness, so it was a lot of pay attention to the sensation of the breath going through the nostril into the lungs and then back. And so, first of all, it's very powerful to develop that kind of concentration. Where you can let go of all other thoughts. It's a necessary power, because if you are, for instance, going to do Ramana's who am I?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do the same thing, because you have to keep all your attention on who I am at the exclusion of all other thoughts. So that ability to be focused is essential.
Yes.
But that meditation practice, like every other meditation practice, including the one that I teach.
Yes. Because Anapanasati meditation has been given by the Buddha.
Yes,
That is what he used to teach.
that's
And
right.
then we have carried out his method of meditation into everybody. I don't know, now there are lakhs of meditators around the world whom he has taught for the last 30 years.
Yes,
So this a great impact that has been made through meditation. It has changed so many people's lives and everything.
absolutely. Now, the thing about meditation is, of course, just doing meditation, I think, has benefits for anybody who does it at any level. So I'm a big proponent of doing it. And I'm sure you and your father are also aware that even though there might be millions of people doing that kind of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
there's always a very few that discover something amazing, right? It's a millions of people
Absolutely.
do it, and millions of people get benefit. Of course, they're less stressed, and they're more calm, and they often become more compassionate, more beautiful people. But then there's a few people who realize the truth of who they are. So in the end, any practice can only take you so far. And then there needs to be some kind of leap that I think is probably usually grace. It's just usually something that happens,
Mm-hmm.
and that will take you beyond any practice, beyond the limits of the practice. And what I find in America, because I have many students who've practiced that kind of mindfulness technique,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes it becomes a source of stress for them because they're trying to do it right. Right?
Okay.
And I'm sure your father knows this. If you get too into trying to do it right, then it just becomes something else you're trying to get right.
Okay.
And at the same time, you can't be completely lax either. So there's this perfect middle place where you're doing it, but you're not self-conscious about it, right? And
Right.
you're just following the breath, and it becomes very natural. And
So that is where the surrender thing comes, wherein you just let go of everything when you do meditation. You just let it
yes,
go.
right. And so for instance, in that practice, or the practice the way that I'm teaching, or any other practice, there's a magic point, which is the point where you decide just to do it, right? So often when we start, we're trying to do it. We're trying to follow the breath, and you could spend years trying to follow the breath, or trying to perfect the following of the breath, which is different than when you just say, okay, I'm just going to sit and follow my breath. And if my mind wanders, I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm just going to start following my breath again. and you don't make it any,
Absolutely.
right? Then it's very simple. Then that's when the practice has magic power. Until then, it's an activity, and you can get good at it, but just getting good at following your breath isn't the point. The point is
Yes.
using that as a vehicle for surrender.
Yeah. So meditation is just needs to be very effortless and the most easy process
Yes,
to go within, to go deep within. So to become effortless, become easy, and become just letting go and surrendering yourself.
absolutely.
That's what it is.
Right.
Uh, that's so wonderful. And please tell us about this school that you have started.
Okay. Before I get to the school, I'll just one last thing on meditation.
Uh-huh.
There's many different techniques of meditation, right? There's Ramanas, the Buddhas, many. I'm sure there's differences between the techniques, but the differences between the techniques are not nearly as important as the the sort of heart that one
Mm-hmm.
brings to the practice. You know,
Right. Right.
it's people have gotten, the amazing thing is there's many different practices all over the world, meditation practices, prayer practices, prostrations, and and for every single one of them there's always some people who seem to get enlightened by doing them. Right, but that's usually it's a small number of people compared to all the people that actually do the practice. So I think there's a lot of amazing practices, and you always need some technique to at least to get started. And the goal is always to go beyond all technique. Um, so in terms of the school, it was always a vision of mine to have a mystery school. So I borrow the term from the ancient mystery schools of Greece and Egypt. And the
Okay.
idea of a mystery school was that that's the place where people were studying the invisible reality,
Okay.
the spiritual realities that can't be generally seen on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And they would do, for instance, in some of the ancient Greek schools, they would do incubation practices where they would lock themselves in a dark cave for days.
Mm.
It was obviously a kind of meditation. And then they would go on, and they would by denying themselves the stimulus of the superficial surface world, their
Okay.
consciousness would expand into the secret realms of the spirit. So in a modern version, the school that I run is mainly an online school, and we have essentially an online campus where courses run. I offer courses there, but also many of our members will offer courses. We have a video classroom like this, and anybody can sign it out for their classes. And we have a schedule of classes that take place.
Uh-huh.
As I said, I teach some, but many of the other members teach some. I have a few contributing teachers who are masters in their own right in different ways, and they periodically will teach in the school. And we have forums for conversation and discussion. We have a collective blog that everyone can contribute to. So the idea is that there's a community of people that are constantly interacting around
Mm-hmm.
matters of spirit and supporting
Mm.
each other, because I believe that there's the individual work of practice, but
Mm-hmm.
then that work needs to, for most people, of course, there's always the exceptions like Ramana Maharshi, who just lays down and gets enlightened when he's 16. But, if that's going to happen to you, you don't need anything. um,
That's true.
for most of us, there needs to be an individual practice of some type. And that practice usually needs to be supported by a community of like-minded people. And in our world, many people who are seriously interested in spiritual practice and awakening don't have, sometimes they don't know anybody that they can talk to about these things. And it's very difficult to progress if it's completely an individual inner matter. There is an important part of the spiritual path which has to do with the mutual reinforcement and affirmation. So when I say to you, like even in our conversation, when I say something to you and you recognize the truth of it, or you say something to me and I recognize the truth of it, we're mutually reinforcing each other's realization in a social way that's very important, because we're not just individuals. We're also part of a collective field of individuals. So
Yes.
that's why I wanted to start the mystery school, so that anywhere people were in the world, there would be a place that they could go regularly and always know that they were going to find a group of like-minded souls that they could communicate with.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And when I announced the interview with you with a group of my friends, and they were really interested in joining your the programs that you're conducting through your school, and they were actually wondering if if Jeff can give us some discounts so that we can actually afford to um, attend the programs that he's putting up. So
I will definitely do that. So
okay,
you and I can be in contact about that, and we'll figure out a way to do
definitely,
it so that it works for your.
definitely. Because so many are interested in joining this group, these programs. That's why.
Yeah, well, we'll make it as affordable as it needs to be to make
And
sure
that's
that people
that's
can join it.
sure. That would be really lovely. And when you were saying about inclusiveness and unity and stuff, and you have written a book on radical inclusivity.
Yes.
And what do you mean by inclusiveness? It's like synthesis or like union. What do you mean by inclusiveness?
Okay, so inclusiveness means a lot of things at a lot of different levels. This radical inclusivity that I was talking about is another way to talk about meditation. It's another way to speak about what we were speaking earlier, that from one way of seeing the path to enlightenment, it's the dissolution of the sense of separation, right? So we go from the separate sense of self to oneness or non-duality. And that is non-duality. The path to non-duality, or one way to see the path to non-duality, is a radical inclusiveness. So in meditation, what that looks like is, whenever there's a problem in meditation, that means there's something that exists that you're not willing to include as part of this meditation. So in other words, I'm feeling frustrated, and I don't want that. I'm not willing to include that. So I'm trying to work something out, right? And so radical inclusivity means everything gets to be included. The worst feelings, the best feelings, the confusions, that you don't ever exclude something. You never hold something separate and say, no, that's not part of reality for me. I'm not going to. And so at a very deep level, it just means you keep drawing a bigger circle. That's what I sometimes say about meditation. When you're meditating, the answer is always to include. So whatever it is you find yourself fighting against, you just draw a circle big enough to include that too. And then you'll see something else you're fighting against. So you draw a bigger circle, right? So, and if you keep drawing bigger and bigger circles until you realize you're going to include everything. So that means you're going to include anything that could possibly happen. So you don't need any circle at all anymore. Radical inclusivity means there's no more circle. There's no more boundary, because everything is going to be included. Everything you're currently experiencing and everything you could possibly experience is always already included. That's the radical inclusivity that I'm speaking about in that book. And then you drop any idea of inclusion and then there's no more inclusion and exclusion. There just is what is, and then it's over.
That's beautiful. Wow, it's so freeing. It's such an amazing way to see the truth as it is, and that's wonderful. And we have a few people who have come and joined us. And if you have any questions, you can ask right now. And while they're doing that, I really want to know about your future plans, about your vision and mission for the future, and what is it that how do you want to see this world as?
Well, I wish it was in my control how I want to see the world as, but I guess the way I look at myself and the work that I'm doing, I feel like I am trying to create the conditions in this school and in this work where different possibilities for how to be human can be incubated, can be experimented with, can be developed. And,
Yeah.
so I used to be a school teacher many years ago, and in education, there's always demonstration schools, and a demonstration school is a school in which they're using different ways of teaching than are usually used, and they do it to show that it's better. So they got a small school, they run it for 10 years, and they go, look, our kids are smarter than all the other kids because our methods are better. In some ways, I feel like that's what I want to do, is create a demonstration world with a growing group of people, and the lives that they start to live are so much more attractive than the kinds of
Mm-hmm.
lives that people are generally living, that more and more people
Mm-hmm.
want to live that way, want to understand. And that's the work that you, and I'm sure your father, are doing, which is,
Mm-hmm.
as you work, people they see you, they see your father, they see the people you work with, and they go, wow, they seem different. They seem happier, right? What are they doing? I want some of that. And that's how it works. We create a positive example that draws more
Mm.
people in. So you're doing that. I'm doing that. There's many, many people doing that in little pockets all over the world. And as I see it, that's how the world grows into a better place.
Yes, that's beautiful. Jeff, have you ever visited India?
Yes, I haven't been for a long time, but I think the last time I was there was in 2005. But
Uh-huh.
I went the first time in 1993, and then I've probably been 6 times between those years. It was always for retreats,
Mm-hmm.
and I never stayed longer than about a month. Uh,
Okay.
but yes, I have been to India on those times, and my wife and I have been thinking about. Of course, nobody can travel right now, but we've been thinking about going to India for a few years
Yes.
because we haven't been. She lived there for 4 years many years ago, and we haven't been for a while.
Right, that's beautiful. And we do have a beautiful place in India where we invite grandmasters like you. You can have, you can come and visit the place which is called Pyramid Valley International. And we have built a huge pyramid in Bangalore, in India, in
Okay,
Karnataka state. And I would love to invite you to come there and just, whenever the next time that you make a visit to India,
okay,
I'm inviting you heartfully to please come and visit our pyramid in Bangalore. I will be able to send you the address and everything. But yes, this is a formal invitation from us, from Pyramid Spiritual Societies, for you to please come over and share the entire wisdom of yours with all of us.
okay. Well, next time I'm in India, I will be sure to go. I've been to Bangalore before, but again, I think 2005 was the last time I was there. It's probably
Right.
different. It's probably changed a lot since then. It's
Yes.
15 years ago almost.
Right. And not just the Bangalore pyramid, we have built like thousands and thousands of pyramids around the world.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
yes, and this amazing work that has been done by Subhash Patri ji. He has built many pyramids throughout the world, and it's like a 180 by 180 pyramid, which has been constructed in Bangalore and Hyderabad as well. So we encourage people to sit and meditate in the pyramids so that they can grasp the cosmic energy directly. Uh,
Beautiful.
so that is what we have been encouraging to do, and we would love to have you in India with us.
Well, fantastic. I would love to meet you and your father in person
Thank you.
when I have
And
a chance.
yeah, finally, please give us a message to everybody, whoever is watching and listening to you right now. Your final message of to anybody, to the
Okay.
overall world.
So my final message would be there's so much possible in life. Uh, the piece of reality that we normally see is such a small slice of a huge multidimensional reality. And the secret to letting go of our attachment to the little slice we have is ultimately just surrender and relaxation, because we are already cosmic beings. We don't have to become cosmic beings. We just have to relax and surrender to what we already are. And then the truth of our cosmic nature will inevitably be revealed as soon as we give up any idea that it isn't already so. So that would be my final
That's so
message.
wonderful. That's so wonderful. And our deepest gratitude to you to be able to spend an hour with us, giving us your precious time out of your busy schedule. I know you're very busy. So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be able to talk to you, interact with you, and to come online for us and to share, to be able to share your knowledge and wisdom with us. And I wish you all the best in all your future endeavors, and let us all spread wisdom and meditation and knowledge.
You are very, very welcome. And I assume that I can watch this video on YouTube.
Definitely, sir. I'll be able to send the
So I
link
will
to
send
you.
it to all my people to watch.
Yes,
And
sir.
please give my love to your father. Send him my deepest gratitude for his work and his commitment and everything that he's sharing with people, and to you and everything that you're doing, and to everyone who is associated with you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Lots of gratitude to you, sir. And thank you to Sovi for supporting this. And
Okay.
thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff
Okay.
Carreira.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Lots of love to you. Bye-bye.
Lots of love to you.